Understanding suffering and healing. In life, we all long for healing because we all face suffering, whether it's physical pain, emotional distress, or the trials that come with living in a broken world. We long for healing, comfort, and restoration. But the question remains, why do people suffer? And how can healing come in the midst of pain? Today, let us explore the tension between suffering and healing from a biblical perspective. The Bible speaks truth about both, showing you that suffering and healing are not always separate, but often intertwined in ways you might not fully understand. Everybody experiences suffering in one way or another. It could be chronic illness, the loss of a loved one, financial struggles, or emotional wounds. But how do you reconcile that suffering with the promise of healing? Romans 8:28 reminds you that, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." This verse doesn't promise that you won't experience suffering, but it assures you that God can bring good out of your difficult circumstances, even when you can't see it at first. Think about someone who is battling a long-term illness. The pain and uncertainty can be overwhelming. But what if this suffering becomes a way for that person to connect more deeply with God, or opens the door for others to show compassion and support? In the midst of hardship, healing doesn't always look like instant recovery. Sometimes, healing means finding peace in the storm, learning to trust God in the process, and knowing that He is working for your good, even when you can't see the full picture. In 2 Corinthians 12:7-10, Paul shares his own experience with suffering. "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong.'" Paul had what he called a thorn in the flesh, a persistent struggle he couldn't escape. But in his weakness, he discovered that God's grace was enough. And in his suffering, he encountered a deeper strength from God's presence. Suffering, in the form of everyday challenges, is something everybody face. Whether it's the struggle with mental health, financial difficulty, or the pain of broken relationships, it's easy to feel that you are constantly fighting. But like Paul, you can find that, in your weakness, God's strength is made perfect. Healing often comes through the realization that you don't have to have all the answers, but you can lean on God's grace. God doesn't always remove the suffering immediately, but He does promise to be with you through it. Sometimes, healing isn't just about physical recovery. It's about spiritual growth and transformation. It's about finding strength in God's presence and learning to trust Him even when the road is hard. 1 Peter 4:12-13 reminds us, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed when His glory is revealed." Peter tells us that suffering is a part of life, and rather than be caught off guard by it, you are called to rejoice in it because you are participating in the sufferings of Christ. In your suffering, you can be reminded of Jesus' own suffering and how that led to your salvation and healing. Think about a person who has faced deep grief after losing a loved one. Though the pain is real, they draw closer to the heart of God. This connection brings a deep sense of healing that cannot be explained by human logic or medicine alone. Healing often happens gradually. It might start with small steps, like learning to forgive, finding peace, or experiencing emotional restoration. And sometimes it happens all at once, in a powerful moment of breakthrough. But whether gradual or instantaneous, God's healing is not only physical, it is spiritual, emotional, and relational. The dichotomy of suffering and healing is a difficult one. You may not always understand why you suffer, but the Bible assures you that God is near. Through your most painful times, He walks with you, offering His grace, strength, and healing. And in the end, He works everything for your good, even when it doesn't seem that way at the moment. As you face suffering, you can trust God and seek healing, and be confident that God's love and grace will sustain you through the pain. No matter what you're facing today, know that healing is not just about physical recovery. It's about finding peace in God's presence and experiencing His strength in your weakness. This concludes Episode 8 of Healing is Your Birthright. I hope you have been blessed. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support the channel. The next episode is about healing and deliverance, exploring the role of deliverance in divine healing. For more faith-building materials, prayer request, and healing testimonies, email pathwaysermonseries@gmail.com. Thank you.